Just like that. Jig night, 2 weeks in a row. West Coast, H2O hooligans in the house tonight. What's happening, folks? Welcome to Jig Squad. I am Mike Murphy, otherwise known as Barracuda. Checking out chat a little bit here. Always look forward to Jig Night. Dave Richardson, Bass, Tom Morehouse, Jay, Darius, George, Gators, Daniel, and whoever else starts popping in. Usually once we get going, everyone flows in. All right. So listen, we don't get to talk to the West Coast guys too much, and so cool talk tonight. One of my favorite, I'm gonna bring them in, and then I'll gloat about them a little bit. John Lee, Andrew fishing the 262 bass, Larry Hadley, what's up, brother? I'm gonna gloat about them when I bring them on air, and then I'll let them introduce themselves so we don't make them wait. But we got Jig Addict in the house tonight from Cali. And I'm a big fan of Wayne. I appreciate him tremendously. And I'm going to bring him in so he gets to hear me. Wayne, what's happening, buddy? Welcome to Jig Squad.
How y'all doing?
As we start, I got to talk a little bit about, so everyone knows about like how I came to be a fan of Jig Addict. So long, probably before I even started Jig Squad. I think when on my regular Barracuda 8U account on Instagram, I was following Jig Addict for a while.
It was like,
and yeah, dude, I always appreciated his stuff, and I'm like, I think one of the biggest things is now that Jig Squad's been moving along a little bit more. He's a fantastic designer, and he does a couple of very cool things. He does them really well, very clean. And I really love some of his stuff, but I'm appreciative that this is one of the cats that was around before I even started Jig Squad, and that I kind of was watching and seeing his stuff, and I've learned a ton from watching everything. But Wayne makes some really cool stuff, and Wayne, go ahead, buddy. You tell us about you a little bit and how long you've been in the jig game for, my friend.
Well, I mean, I've been fishing. I'm basically base shore fisherman.
Okay.
Back then, I fished the shore starting up, and we used to let me grab one. So we used to fish these bucktails, and before I started making them, we used to modify the ones that we bought. Sometimes they'd be too long, too short, so we'd cut them so that when we put our trailers on, they would fit perfectly. And then the hooks, I like the hook set back, so we don't get those short strikes.
Sure.
But yeah, so basically I've been fishing the beach for years, and I would have a problem because I fish at night. The hooks would get bent out and the hair would fall off, and I wouldn't notice it because it was so dark. So I'd lose all kinds of fish. So
Really?
One day, like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just gonna start making my own, and that's when I started, exploring into the jig world, and then I kind of got addicted to it, and then went down the bunny hole, and that's where it went.
And it never stopped.
Yeah, never. I mean, I've never stopped since then. Now I only fish my own jigs, and other people's custom jigs that they make. I don't buy anything from the store really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. I mean,
that's awesome, bud, because I think like I'm gonna make some mentions of things, because there's always things about different designers that I always like catch my eye, right? And I'm gonna talk about some of those as we discuss this evening. A few more people jumped in. Alf, Pandemonium, what's happening, buddy? Gators, Garris, we got you. Mass, South Jersey, what's going on, guys? All right, so I'm going to wait to talk about trailers till later, Wayne.
okay.
But I just want you guys to keep in mind what Wayne said about the length of the bucktail, like what he was really looking for, like how they want it. And like you'll hear people talk about with bucktails, all different types of things. They'll talk about like the amount of material, it's going to change the fall rate. But a lot of people always talk about the length of bucktail. They always want the longest bucktail, but Wayne talks about it in terms of some very unique things. And when we talk about trailers later, I want you to pay attention, because he's done some very unique things with trailers that I want to make sure we talk about. All right. So Wayne, here's the thing. Tell me about this though. All right. So a lot of the guys, so we might have some of the Cali guys jumping in, this evening too, right? But East Coast striper fishing has a lot of similarities to the Cali striper guys, right?
Yeah.
But talk about like when you guys are fishing the beaches with bucktail jigs, right? Talk to me about is it all stripers? What other species are you guys going for? And kind of what's the vibe of the Cali surf fishing scene? Because I think
Well,
a lot of people haven't heard it all the time. And I want to make sure we expose it more for putting it out there of what it is.
oh yeah. I mean, for out here, it's mostly stripers.
Okay.
That's the primary catch in the beach. I mean, you'll get surf perch, but you're not really fishing bucktail. Sometimes you'll get a big perch on a bucktail, but mostly it's going to be striped bass. There's some beaches that hold halibut, and we go for those too. But those are like here in like a quick in and out. They got to be there at a certain time. The water has to be perfect.
Sure.
But when they're there, and we use bucktails for them also. But yeah, the primary is just bass.
Chasing bass.
I
Chasing
wish we
bass.
had bluefish. I wish we had albacore, but you got to go to the East Coast for that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I always the fascination. Well, one, I would love to fish for stripers out in the West Coast sometime, but the East Coast guys, they kind of got it spoiled a little bit because if you're not catching stripers, you might get on some big blues, and there's a lot of different things that happen. But okay, so that's so interesting to me. And so what would you say are the guys on the would you compare the use of bucktail jigs on the West Coast in terms of frequency for a striper fisherman to being similar to what you see people talk about from the East Coast? Do you guys get
uh,
into the plugs at all, or are you more? You think people are more on the jigs than any plugs compared to
oh,
some
I
of those
mean,
East Coast guys?
we fish basically the same things they fish. Our water is probably a little bit different, so we kind of fish them a different way. But over there, they go real heavy on the jig. I mean, I know some jig guys out there that the smallest bucktail they tie is a 2 ounce, and the average size they'll use is like a 4 ounce, and that's huge for over here. People ask me for
So say that again. So your average sizes you're using from the beach are what?
for the average fisherman in the West Coast. I'm gonna say 1 ounce.
Okay.
I go. I like to use 3/4 if the water's right because it's a lot lighter and I can get it to dance a little better. I'm more of I look for structure. I'm that
Right.
type of fisherman that I want to fish structure. I want to fish, the the different bowls in the sand and all the little
Yeah.
troughs.
Yeah, it's funny because I I honestly think there's a lot of different ways to consider some bucktail stuff, right? So I'll make mention of this later. This is all from, some perspective for me of like trip planning, but as an example, you hear a lot of the canal guys on the East Coast, right? They'll talk about because the volume, what the current is. I mean, they're throwing sometimes 2-3 ounce. They'll go a lot heavier in a lot of different conditions. But when you start really getting down to it and having conversations with beach fishermen and surf fishermen, especially for striped bass, like 3/4 might be one of the most all around known sizes. And it's funny you said 1 ounce because like I've always been inclined to say, you know what? If I have to choose and I can only pack so many things to go with me on a trip, I'm taking 1 ounces over 3/4 ounce. Why? Because I don't want to be. You don't want to be too light, right?
Yeah.
And probably I would prefer to always have that, but that's not always the case. So talk to me, Wayne, a little bit about like, okay, so you make jigs for yourself, and I know you probably, share these with your buddies, but are you selling jigs sometimes? Are you busy as all get out doing that? What's the scene like for you when it comes to making jigs?
Well, yeah. So in the beginning, man, I was real busy. I was selling all kinds of jigs. I'm still selling them now, but I kind of like went low key on it. I'm not really posting too much stuff because I get too busy, man. I don't got time for myself anymore.
Yeah.
And like I tell everybody, I don't do this to get rich, man. I do this because I wanna have, I just want to make money to support my habit,
Sure.
of fish.
That's a good comment. That's a good
So
comment. All right. So Matt, South Jersey fisherman says, Jig Egg, do you go after the steelheads over there, or do you use any smaller bucktails for steelhead?
we I've went out a handful of times for steelhead, but you got to go up more north if you want a good bite on the steelhead.
And
So
you're where, Wayne?
I'm San Francisco Bay Area, and then
Okay.
so when we do steelhead, we usually drive up to Oregon and we go over there, but we float eggs and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
I haven't used a bucktail on a steelhead. Over here on this side, salmon is the bigger salmonoid fish to go for,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
sometimes
I mean,
sometimes we
especially
get salmon on the
no,
surf.
go ahead, Wayne. Go ahead. I'm talking over you. Sorry, bub.
Yeah, sometimes we get those salmon runs in the surf, and man, it goes crazy. And everybody's out there getting them.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy because once you get up towards the northern California, will you start getting into the salmon and stuff or steelhead, and then definitely Oregon and Washington,
Oh
right? But
yeah,
northern Cali, will they start to get them up way up north too?
the salmon.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we get a lot of salmon over here. They actually swim through our whole system over here, from the ocean into the delta, up the rivers.
yeah.
Unfortunately, this year they closed it.
Did they really
Yeah, they closed it, so it's gonna be a big
catch and
time.
release?
It's gonna be a big time hammer fest on the stripers and the halibut this year over here, which is not good, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
All right, very interesting. All right, so one of you guys listen. One of my favorite things that Wayne does is he's got some clean jigs. And to be honest with you, in the day of Instagram, there's so many so many people out there that have so many super clean things. But Wayne's one of my OGs. It is what it is, right? So one of the things I like is that Wayne, talk to me about the evolution of, probably still to today or some version thereof. You've powder painted, but you do a lot of airbrushing on your jigs now. So tell me the balance between the two and how you transitioned from powder painting to airbrush, or did you just go straight to airbrush when you started doing the
Well,
bucktail?
so when I very first started, I was just trying all kinds of stuff, and the first thing you're gonna get into is the powder coating because it's the easiest thing.
Sure.
Um,
Yes, I agree.
and it was cool and everything, but spraying powder gets messy, and then you got to have a, a oven to bake them, and so I just said, you know what, I want to do airbrushing. I could get more detail in there. I could blend it better. I mean, for some people, they blend the powder coating really good. I'm like, I don't know how they do that.
I know.
So, I mean, some people it works for them, but for me, I like to airbrush everything.
Okay. You'll even do that, Wayne, for your base coats. Like, so you're from the start, you're straight up airbrushing. You're not
Yeah,
even doing a
from
first starter dip.
yeah. So from bare metal, then I'll put on the base coat,
Yep.
and then from there I'll start coating the paint. But that's where it starts. But and then
Um, this is a great question. So Matt says, what's the durability on the airbrush paint? That's a good question. I don't think it's ever been asked on here before.
well, I think powder paint is way more durable. Um, if I mean anything you bang against the rocks is gonna come off. Um, so with the airbrush, I found it's pretty durable. It just depends on the what kind of clear you put on it, because when it's dragging on the sand, then that's when it starts coming off. But I mean, I use jigs that are 3 years old that have half paint, no eyes on them, and I'm still ripping them.
Yeah. And you say as much as you want or what? So like John Lee's just saying, he goes, you gotta clear coat, right? So many people do so many different things. Do you have a preferred product that you like to use for your clear coat finishes?
So after I'm done painting them, I'll dip them in a vinyl coat, and then after that, I'll epoxy them
Okay.
with some epoxy, and then it stays good for at least the season, depending on how you fish. You know, I'm not the one to drag bucktails in the sand, so mine lasts pretty long.
That's a
But
good comment too, you know? Like, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I think most people are pretty much retrieving these in some capacity, right? I
yeah,
get there's applications for them, you know, for bouncing them in the sand, but I don't think that happens as much. But that's a good point. So you're dipping them in vinyl and then clear coating them.
yeah. So
Okay.
I like the vinyl because the vinyl will when you dent it, it'll bend with the paint, so it won't chip right away. You know.
You know, that's a great comment. There's so in time, I'm interested. The other person I know that does vinyl stuff is I don't know if he's in chat. He's around. You see him in chat sometimes. His name's Jay is Outdoorsy, and Jay's going to be on the show in the next couple of months too. But Jay makes like a lot of walleye jigs and stuff like that. And I know that wait, I don't want to say that. I could be saying the wrong thing. Jay, if I'm wrong, it's not vinyl. I take back my comment. Some reason I started thinking of Jay all right away. And as I'm saying this, I'm like, why does this not sound completely right? Um, Vinyl's real interesting, right? And are you thinning it out at all, or does it depend on what you're using?
Dipping it straight up.
Yeah, look at there. Jay's here. Jay, I don't know why I was thinking that for a second. Mostly epoxy, right? Okay. For whatever reason, Jay, I don't know. I was just thinking of you, buddy. So hope you had a good day. I get these ideas in my head sometimes, guys, and I try and recall, and it doesn't always work to the extent that I'm hopeful. So all right, so here, let me see what else. All right, so Matt says, I gotta ask, do you think color on bucktails on saltwater jigs is even needed? I know guys who swear with just bare lead, but we all know colors look good to us. Yeah, they definitely colors look good to us. But you know, look at what's the number one color of bucktail, Wayne? You know, bucktail jig.
Chartreuse.
See, I'm so happy you said this because I would bet, I don't know, I would bet 8 out of 10 guys would tell you from the East Coast that white.
Yeah, I mean, I like white too. That's one of my go-tos, but I'm kind of a chartreuse guy.
And you like that green chartreuse.
Yeah, I like that dark green. I mean, it usually depends on it depends on what I'm fishing. I mean, color matters not so much as action, I'm thinking, because with the striper itself, I believe that they're hunting on their lateral line, and vibration and action is what gets them going. But if they can't see the damn thing, then
Right.
how they gonna know what's there,
You know, that's a good comment. I've said this before, and I don't know. I'm generally going to say things similarly to what I've talked about over time. But I also think that what happens is when it comes to color, which I'm a huge fan of. I know back in the day when I started Jig Squad, everyone talked about, I put flow before color, right? Well, the reality is I talk about flow, meaning how color impacts what a jig looks like, the shape, the profile, does it change? But the uniqueness of color is that it changes shades and gradients. So things aren't just, black and white, they become gray. So if they can't see different colors, they become a gradient of. And so I'm convinced that that's the case. And I do think that it matters, right? So I do believe color matters. But Matt, South Jersey fisherman, I'll also say I'm the same guy that has said for a long time that I have made more smallmouth jigs, ball head jigs that were unpainted than I ever made that were painted.
Oh, those things,
So
those have color too.
yeah, right. I mean, I guess so. You know what I got, Wayne? Here, I never had this color, right? And there's so many different paint brands to use out there, and a lot of people use a lot of different things. I use ProTech. I'm associated with ProTech. I've always used ProTech. They're my bread and butter. I'm not manufacturing. I'm not looking for, a lot of people talk about Stardust and all these other things. Sounds great. I'm sure they're awesome, but I don't have time to try 10 new brands of paint anymore. It's just that's not my jig making experience, right?
Yeah.
Well, but what I got the other day, I don't know, maybe a month or two back, and I haven't made anything with it, but I intend to, is I actually got chrome colored powder paint, which is basically like a glossy silver, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm laughing to myself and go, why am I even going to paint it? Why don't I just leave it bare lead? It's
Oh yeah.
not going to look that tremendously different, but you know, I digress, you know. All right, so let's see. There's a few different comments, and if I miss comments ever, guys, and you want to make sure, just tell me because I do miss things once in a while. So Larry says chartreuse also has a very strong UV property to it, just naturally, which is interesting. So what do you got in your hands right there, Wayne?
Oh, I was gonna say I believe in color a lot too. So
Okay, let's see.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite colorway. This is what I catch everything on. When the fish aren't biting, this is what I'm putting on. And the reason why I like this is because it has the change in color. So
such a contrast.
Yeah. So when they see that contrast, I feel like that's money right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Perfect Jig, Dorkfish. What's happening, guys? I really like that colorway, bud. That looks pretty slick.
Yeah, this is my number one go-to. If everybody knows this is my color.
Nice.
I like throwing this when it's overcast and the water's kind of dirty. Perfect, because it has that dark head.
Yeah, so people are talking about in chat, John saying nice contrast. Couple people are talking about Stardust, right? Dorkfish and a few other people mentioned them. I think John Lee mentioned them as well, about trying those. Alf is Mr. Paladin here. He says perfect eye contrast. Yeah. I just like the shading. So like a lot of times what you'll see on Wayne's jigs, you guys, because he does the airbrush painting, he just gets a nice transition of color on the head. And it's and Wayne, here's what I think of your jigs. I think your jigs are extremely clean, and I love the transitioning of color on your jigs, but I've never looked at your jigs and thought them to be overly complicated. Meaning they're not too busy. They're just very thoughtful, very clean, and that's what I see, right? That's the truth. And I think I'm drawn to that in a lot of ways. Not that I'm not drawn to the fancy and nice big hackle feathers off the back end of a jig. I like that too. But if you were to say, hey, Mike Murphy, Kuda, what jig are you making? I'm making something that's going to be a little more simple in terms of just contrast, color. I think length becomes a big deal. There's some other things that characteristically that I look at, and I just look at it differently than other people. Wayne, let me ask you something. Somebody made, I think it was Adam Felder, SDG Custom Lorecraft. And I don't know anyone in chat or even yourself, Wayne, if you've ever seen Adam Felder stuff. SDG Custom Lorecraft. He does a lot of awesome jig making videos. He's doing a lot of custom plastics now. But I remember he replied on one post that I made. And I don't know if I said this on the last show. He replied to one of the posts that I put up of another designer, right? I think the picture was of Brian Cole from Brian's Custom Tackle. And he replied, he says, before I even scrolled down to see who the designer was, I had already guessed who it was, Adam had. And it's funny. And he said that, and I started thinking about that. And I want to start asking people when guests are on the show, are you able to look? You've obviously followed other jig makers on Instagram. Are you able to look sometimes and be able to call out and say, that's so-and-so's jig over the other 100+ jig makers that you follow, right? Are you able to tell? Can you tell?
just because of their style of tying and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's so funny to me that I think it's real. Like you could just tell. And like I'll give you another example. There's a designer out there, and I won't say the name because I don't want to make it sound negative because it's not. I don't think anything bad about their design, but it's just, I'm just not going to say. But sometimes I think this designer stuff is fantastic and cool, but it's not my style of jig. I love seeing their stuff. I love looking at their stuff, but it's nothing that I would make, right? A lot
Yeah.
of colors. And I love color, but it's just there's a lot going on to me, right? And I appreciate it for the artistic end of it, but in terms of just my style for myself, like it's not my style is a little bit different. And that's what makes it cool that people have it. And it doesn't nothing has to be elaborate. Sometimes people go overboard and they do too much. Um, so let's transition into this. So here's a comment for you. So you talked earlier about length of the bucktail, right? And you wanting a certain length. Talk to me about how you decide what you want your length to be on the bucktails that you make.
Well, I actually base it on the trailer that I'm gonna use. So I actually have a little stick thing that I use while I'm tying to make sure that I'm staying in that zone, because when I used to buy store-bought bucktails, they used to be so long, my trailer would barely protrude the end of the bucktail, and it's covering all the action. It's not letting the tail wiggle or anything. So that was
Yeah.
the whole thing about us back in the day. We used to cut them to fit, but when you cut them, you lose the tip, so you don't have all that
Yeah.
that flow on the tip, and that's one of the
Yep.
reasons I started tying my own. So I buy these big old bucktails, but I waste like half of the hairs because I'm cutting like half of them off, and people are like, "Holy crap, man!" But
Right.
it is what it is, man. What
Um,
you'll
that you know what? Is there how much do you want to talk about trailers or
what?
I don't you good talking about yours?
Yeah, for sure. But I just gotta find
All
some around.
right, let me tell this story a little bit, right? So once upon a time, good old Wayne here, um, he posts some pictures of bucktails, right? But then I sent him a message. This is before Jig Squad even started. Do you remember this? I,
I
I, I,
don't
so I sent Wayne a message and I'm like, hey, I'm like, what is that trailer you're using? And it was basically a grub style trailer. But the
know.
thing is, and then he started to tell me about it and he talked about the length. And when he said the length, it was so specific. Like it wasn't like, oh, that's a 4-inch grub. It was like 4 and 5/7. It was so precise. And I go, this has to be a custom trailer. And
Oh,
then we talked a little bit more. And then indeed there were elements of that. So talk to us a little bit about the trailers that you like, um, and what you like to use.
so after I figured out how I was gonna tie my bucktails, I measured it and I asked this guy that makes molds to make me a grub and 3.73 inches.
I love this story, dude.
And he did it, man. And you know what? He sells the mold too with that
Oh,
same.
oh, he does in that exact size.
Yeah, I was like, come on, bro.
That is, I see. I never knew that. That is hilarious. That is so great. And the part that I love about this story so much is that it's the freaking size, right? It's like, and you know what the thing is? Your size could be different than like if I'm making designing a bucktail, right? And I'm saying this is how I want my sized bucktails to look. It may be a little different than that. So it doesn't mean that 373 is going to work on everyone else's bucktail because they might design it a little differently. But yours, that is the exact size that you want for that bucktail. And I honestly think if you ever wonder, guys, why certain things about certain designers excite me, it's things like that like I just remember because no one else knows that. Maybe just a few people, but it's something that's so detailed that I just love it so much. And it doesn't need to be that way, but this is how he wants it. And I just appreciate that from the design element of it
Yeah.
so much. and it's, you know what it is too, Wayne? I think it just speaks to everyone's ability to kind of design their own things, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know. Imitation, they say imitation is the greatest form of flattering people in this world. And I guess it is to an extent. Um, and that's cool. But man, it is such a good feeling when you have very specific and precise things that you want to make sure are part of what you're doing. So, all right. So listen, here's a question John's asking, which is a good question. What are you doing for a vice? What vice are you using?
Oh man, I forgot what it was called. I think it's a wolf or something like that.
Okay.
It's upstairs, man. I got to run up there and grab it if you want to see it.
No, you don't have to do that, buddy.
It's nothing special. I mean, it has a slot for smaller hooks. When I'm doing these light wire hooks, and then there's a bigger slot for thicker hooks when I'm doing bigger hooks, like thicker hooks like this.
Hey,
So
Wayne, let me ask you a question. Do you was that a poison tail that you just pulled out? Was
yeah,
that a poison tail? You like you like the wide gap hook on that?
I like these wide gap hooks for halibut
Okay.
because I don't like to set the hook on fish. I like to let the rod
Load
load up,
up.
and then they hook themselves, because a lot of times I swing for the fences, and when the fish comes up, there's a real big hole in their lip, and I'm a catch and release fisherman, so I don't want to mess them up that much. So
I asked that, and I'll tell you why I asked that, Wayne, because it's funny because I literally just had conversation with 3 different people in the last month about what other hooks fits in that poison tail mode that isn't that wide gap. And the interesting thing is, in different parts of the country for different things, right?
uh-huh.
But that poison tail with that wide gap might be one of the best, one of my most favorite, one of my most favorite jigs of all time.
Oh yeah, I love this thing. This is my go-to jig for halibut, the poison tail.
Yeah, I just spent a lot of time trying to use different hooks, and if anyone's wondering what other round style hook fits in there, just message me. I think it's a Mustad 3288.
Oh yeah, I actually use this too.
Yeah. What
Oh,
is it? A Mustad 32886? I don't know. Sometimes I get an extra one or not in there, but if you message me, if anyone's thinking about it, there is a regular round bend. There's several actually. There's a lot of different hooks
I
that
think
you
it's a
can use.
20-degree or something like that, or 60 degree. I forget.
I think it's like a 30, right?
I don't know, man. I lose track of all this stuff. If I don't keep
I
the
do
back,
too, buddy.
trouble, man.
Do you know what I said, Wayne? I put up like on my story, I don't know, maybe a month back. I put up on my story, I go, man, this shit is getting complicated. I'm like, I have so many parts and pieces, and I've changed up my organization system a couple times for my hook storage, and I kind of like what I have now because I have them in 3,700 boxes and it's going really well. But man, I'm sitting there, and then when I go and look at my boxes for fishing, I go, oh, I was trying around this size hook in that one in the 3/8 ounce, and then in the half ounce, I tried these 2 hooks, and then I'm looking, I go, well, I don't know which one's which. And then I can't keep track anymore. And then I have all these jigs, and I go, you know what? I can't. And I label them. I'll label them and put them in boxes for when we fish, but I don't always fish like that. Like I like taking my stuff back out, putting it away, and then taking it out depending on what I want to use for the trip. And next thing you know, I'm using a gazillion different size hooks and trying different things out and doing stuff to take pictures. And I thought, I'm a simple man. I need to find a way. I need to find a way to get myself in simple mode in 2023. So it is my goal. But I don't know. Yeah, like you lose track. You got hooks and stuff all over the place. And I know what they all are, but I don't know once they're a finished product. I'm like, I don't remember what's in there. I don't know if it's a 1/0 or a 2/0, or if I
Yeah,
use a 3/0 or a 4/0. Then I'm looking at it, I go, you know, it doesn't even matter. Just throw the darn thing. And so I do like to plan and see what is you're capable of do with different molds and stuff, but I could tell you it's led down a rabbit hole where you kind of don't know where you're at. And just being truthful.
I use certain sizes for every for different weights. So if it's 1 ounce, I know what size I'm using. What size
I think that I need to get back. I had a real good system for myself when it came to northern smallmouth fishing, and then also for like I would say Midwest largemouth fishing too. But then I started making all my own stuff for saltwater, right? Like I'm in the process right now of making some of my own stuff for going to Costa Rica. So like we're going to Costa Rica this summer. So now I'm playing around with hooks that I have no, I should not be around. I got 8Os and I got all kinds of jumbo things for chasing after big rooster fish. And I'm thinking to myself, I need to bring some smaller stuff too. I go, well, how small should I go? It is like planning. It's almost stressful planning. I have to make my life easier. I have to pay attention to what guys like you say, and then Larry Hadley down in Texas, and then the East Coast guys. I gotta start listening. Jay's saying the same thing for travel. It's crazy, man. I don't know. It is what it is. Like you start thinking about it, and you're like, you don't want to be undergunned, right? When you travel, and I don't know, buddy. I do pay attention. You guys. I would not know what I know about saltwater fishing if it wasn't for guys for jig making, if it wasn't for starting to watch guys like Wayne here, Larry Hadley, some of the East Coast guys. I've learned a lot, and I've taken the time to ask questions. I read the forums and I learn a lot, and I don't know, it helps me out. All right, let's talk bucktail, dude. Bucktail material wise, you do you stray outside of the bucktail world that much, or is it exclusively staying? You're a bucktail guy when you're jig making.
Yeah, most of the time I do the those what are those plastic skirts? I do those too for
silicone or whatever. Yeah.
Not much, but I mean, I do a lot of that for halibut for myself.
Okay.
I don't sell them, but they work great for halibut, and we jig them just like the bass guys jig for bass. So
yeah,
that's what
fair.
that's what I use the poison tail heads for.
We use that poison tail mold for swim jigs for a long time. I still have one friend that all he wants, he says, all I want are the poison tails. I used to make one, Wayne, that was like I don't know what size the hook was, what a 4-aught or I don't know what it was. 3/8 ounce, and it was a chartreuse and white with red eyes. Top half chartreuse, bottom half white, clear weed guard. And I actually said we should start making these without the weed guard because he's using them as a swim jig, right? And I'm like, you weren't pulling it through wood that much. And so interesting enough, I just think it's a great mold. It really is. It has been for a long time. All right, so what's Matt say? He says, Cooter, are you going down by where Robert Field stays as a guide? So Matt, South Jersey fisherman, knows the saltwater stuff really well, and he and I just are. I think the people we follow in the world of saltwater fishing are very similar, including like YouTube people and stuff like that. So Matt, yeah, that's Los Buzos he's in Panama. So maybe a little north of there, but we're going to be on the north. We're going to be on the Atlantic side. So we're on the side where it's a lot of rooster fish. So on the east coast of Costa Rica is where they get a lot of snook and big snook off the beaches. But we're on the west side, and it's a family. We're not going down there just to fish. It's a family vacation. I'll probably do charter one day offshore, but I'm not interested in chasing billfish. It's like I want to chase after cubera, snapper, rooster fish, and then I'm bringing gear down. I'm bringing rods and stuff, and I'm gonna fish from the beach, chasing rooster fish and jacks and stuff like that. So it's gonna be fun. So something different. I will tell you, And I don't think I've ever said this, right? My dream fish, and I've had one other chance to try and get one, and I didn't get it. My dream fish is a rooster fish. I would take that over anything in the world. That's the Cuda dream fish, and so I'm going to get another chance this summer. So I'm kind of excited. All right, so here's another question, Wayne. John saying, does Wayne know Fisherman's Life?
I do know Fisherman's Life.
Is Fisherman's Life a person?
Yeah, he's a YouTuber.
Okay.
He's a great guy. He's cool.
Oh, is that wait, whoa. I know this guy. This is the guy that goes out. One, he fishes down in Costa Rica for roosterfish, but then he goes out in his canoe or kayak for halibut and stuff like that. Younger kid, curly hair a little bit.
And
is that the guy?
Yeah, he always eats butter and avocado.
He's got some fantastic videos. I started watching that guy. I started watching him, John Lee, and then also for Wayne. I started watching this guy when COVID was going on, and he was going down to Costa Rica and staying in a tent on the beach. And I started watching him then. So great dude. Has some really, really cool videos.
Oh yeah, he does some crazy stuff too.
Oh yeah, he does some crazy stuff. Yeah, great guy. That's somebody that deserves a lot more attention on YouTube than what he gets. He's got some real cool adventure stuff. Fisherman's Life. It's funny. I didn't put that together at first. Yeah, poor man's lobster, right? All right, so let's see what else. We covered some of the airbrush stuff. I want to talk about your spoons a little bit because this is something new to me. Like I think when I had Tin Man Tackle on, he was talking a little bit about different spoons and things like that. But basically, you guys, Wayne has this spoon that I don't know if this is just a Wayne thing or it's a West Coast thing. He'll talk about it, but it's basically like a keeled spoon. And so this is like the classic. They're out deep, they're out far. You got to get to them. Let's see this thing. Look at that thing. What is that? 3 ounce?
This is a 2 ounce.
2. And there's your color again, buddy.
Yep. And they got this type too. Also, this one's a little shorter and fatter.
Nice.
I mean, there's a bunch of different shapes that you can get. This is actually, I think this is from the East Coast fishermen. And,
okay.
They got all.
They do have a lot of stuff out there for the different sizes. Are you pouring those your own, or are you getting them and then just doctoring them up on your own?
Yeah, so I got lucky. They don't make these anymore. These are like old school, before my time. And I got lucky and found a mold from at a garage sale.
That's awesome. Dude. That's freaking great. And what do you what sizes are in the mold, Wayne? 2 ounce, 3 ounce, 1.5?
1.5 and then 2 ounce.
Okay.
Usually I don't go over 2 ounce. A lot of guys go 3 or 4 ounces, but that's about it. Over here in the West Coast, we're kind of like 2 ounce.
Okay.
And anything else is too heavy.
Anything past 2 ounces?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. And a lot of it has to do with type of gear you're using too. Like you don't want to upsize your gear too much too,
Yeah. I mean, when I first started, I fished light, because I like to fight. I started fishing heavier rods and stuff when I got more into releasing the fish because I didn't want to fight them to death. So
sure,
I try to get them in as quick as possible, and I try to get them back out.
Wayne, what would you say? This is there's something I don't know. What would you say for like and I know there's all different sizes of fish out there. What is it comparable in terms of like what a big fish is for you guys on the West Coast compared to some guys on the East Coast? There's 20, guys if they get 20, 30 pounders, they're more than happy, and 40, 50s are like crazy next level. Like what's What's the striper size in the West Coast comparably?
Over here, even 30-pound fish is like a trophy fish. Oh,
Yeah,
in the East Coast, that's probably average.
right.
They got really big fish out here. Over here, you get a 10-pounder. That's a good fish. You get a 20-pounder. That's a really good fish. You get a 30-pounder. You're like, everybody's talking about you on the beach.
Yeah, that's that's a thing. How would you describe the scene? A tight knit group of people, fishing group, because you've been around a group of guys that you've been friends with for a long time. You still hang out with the same guys when you're going fishing?
Oh yeah, we're a little group. I mean, I met before I met them. I was straight, shore fisherman. And then when I met those guys, I started fishing on the boat more because one of them is one of my buddies. He's actually a boat captain, and
Is he really? Is that the H2O hooligan guys?
he's the yeah. So the
The
the,
best
the
name
boat
in
broke
fishing,
down.
dude. The best guys. So these guys had just a small older video or something out there, and I just remember seeing this before. And their little group's name or whatever, they used to say H2O hooligans. And I always thought, I go, that is one of the coolest names. Wayne, you know what I'm going to do? Does everyone still say that from your group, H2O hooligans?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm going to do, buddy? I think I'm going to take some time and I'm going to design like a little H2O hooligan like sticker for you guys. And
Oh yeah.
I'm going to send you guys the file for it. And I'll tell you where to get them so you guys could get your own stickers. But I think I'm going to do that for you guys because I've appreciated that name for so long. I might do that and make a little logo sticker type of deal for the H2O hooligans crew.
Oh yeah,
So
that's awesome.
it's easy and it helps me practice, dude. Like I do all my own design stuff for like the graphics and everything. So that helps me practice a little bit too. And I'll make that up for you guys and I'll send it. I think I like that. All right,
Yeah.
let's see what go ahead, Wayne.
Hey, what does that even mean? And I'm like, well, H2O is water. And then if you look at the definition of a hooligan, it's like a group of guys that are up to no good. So we're on the water and we're up to no good.
Yeah, that's it's such a great name, man. Guggen Slayer saying I basically only fish bucktail and metal when we drift. Very rewarding. Faith first, what's happening, buddy? Um, yeah, Matt, thanks, buddy. It's gonna be fun. It's not just me and the wifey, it's the boys the Murphy boys are going too. So it's gonna be fun. I'm real excited to have my whole family there. That's not a trip that my family can go and do all the time, but I think we're gonna have a lot of fun and I'm super excited about it.
Oh yeah, be a blast.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do fun family stuff too. It's predominantly a family trip, right? But we'll just do some fishing like in the evening and stuff, and I'll do a day charter. So yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. I love it. And I've said, Wayne, I would give up and whatever the percentages would be, but I would literally give up all freshwater fishing if I could go once a month saltwater fishing. I really would. I love it that much. Um, and I do need to experience the East Coast striper fishing and the West Coast fishing. I haven't experienced it yet. So I got to put it on my list. So you might get a call someday that I'm coming out.
Oh, you're gonna be hooked, man. You're gonna be hooked.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. And I think one of the things is there's so many things that everyone can learn from each other. I really like that your concept of some of those the length of the bucktails, right? Um, I haven't heard too many people talk about that. I've heard a lot of people talk about like the amount of material that you're going to use to change the rate of fall, but that tail is a big deal. Like, do you prefer a single-tailed trailer over any other trailer on your bucktails?
Yeah, I only used one trailer. Is that one? The one I used. That's the only one I use with the big tail. Gives a lot of action, a lot of vibration.
Yeah.
Some guys like to put those long ribbon worms on there, and they do good with those too. But it's whatever you're most confident in. If you're gonna catch fish.
So a comparable, Wayne, that I'll make to let's just talk about like the freshwater bass fishing scene. And I kind of think similarly to other trail. I think about this for trailers, period. There a lot of guys will make, like, let's talk about like silicone jigs and stuff like that. They'll make a jig and then they'll go and throw a craw trailer on, right? And you literally will have like and this is just, you can already tell I don't like over like these ginormal jigs. And I don't care about weight and stuff like that, but I look at some of these jigs sometimes and they turn out to be like 5 inches long when you're done. I go, what crawfish have you ever seen that looks to be 5 inches long? I'm like, I, I, to me, I'm a finesse fisherman. It is what it is. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to say it right now. I don't mind saying this. I'm a finesse fisherman, but I also would not call myself like a Ned fisherman. As a matter of fact, a Ned wouldn't even be the top 4 things I pick up in my hands fishing. It just wouldn't be. I don't know. But the reason I bring this up is, people, I had somebody that messaged me on Instagram when I said that I used a straight tail Zoom finesse worm. I would break it off and I would use it as a trailer on a chatterbait. And somebody sent me a message and saying, you don't know what you're talking about in terms of fishing. I'm like, what? I'm like, clown show, exit stage left. I'm thinking, what do you mean? Okay, sounds good. It's just one of those things. I don't like big, bulky profiled trailers. And so that's why how a trailer matches up on a jig is extremely important. There's no reason fussing about the size of a jig when you turn around and put this gigantic mop of a trailer on the back end of it. That's what I always think. Now, keep in mind, I say this, and I'm also a big grub fisherman. And so I like single-tailed grubs too, because I like fishing them by themselves. I just think that if I want some action, I don't need it to overpower things. And I feel like a lot of trailers on jigs do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there'll be plenty of people that would disagree with me. And somebody who's from like Alabama or Georgia may say, Kuda, you don't know how to fish for largemouth down here. You're fishing for little fish. Maybe I am, but that's just my style, right? And so I appreciate what I stop and pause sometimes to listen to people when they're throwing those big old baits, because I guess, you know what, funny enough, Brown Bait Company, he's in the room. He'd probably also say, Kuda, let me get you on a fish on a glide bait, a big old glide bait. And then you'll tell me how you like fishing bigger baits. Yeah, you're a Cali guy, so you have to have that in your repertoire, but it just goes to show that that's just the style of fisherman I am. And I haven't exposed myself to that next level size of baits. I just haven't, and I probably should. Like in my journey here, I should take the time to be part of that experience, because I think it's I think about that type of fishing a lot. And I think I have to be around somebody that fishes those bigger baits to kind of gain a little bit more respect for them, if that makes any sense.
Me, I was big on smaller baits, but my buddies, they're in the hooligans crew. They got me those big glide baits, and I was like, "Don't do it," because those things cost money, man. They got me into it, so and when we're fishing in the Delta in the freshwater, this is what we're throwing compared to what we're throwing in the saltwater. You know what I mean?
I will say this: I'm so in love with the scene of the big baits like that, whether it be glide baits or whatever the heck else people are throwing. I so love that big bait culture and watching like the unity that's part of it, how they do things, and just I really like it. I almost say it's like another version of what I think that some of the jig scene is. Like these guys are into it, like and I do love that part of them. And that's the stuff that could get me interested and excited about going to do those things. I honestly, I really think it's just I haven't been exposed to it. Oh, hold on, one before. Guggen Slayer, 6-inch grub on the bucktail, okay for Long Island Sound or too big? Somebody's going to be able to answer that one. What size are those old Kalen's Mogambo grubs? Those are 5 inches, aren't they? I think those Kalens are 5. Every grub's different. Sometimes grub companies will tell you the extended length with the tail, and then other times they'll tell you with the tail curled. So it's very deceiving that different companies have a different way that they measure their grubs. Brown Bait Company is saying, was that a Hyro?
Yeah, the first one.
See, I mentioned his name earlier. Brendan knows the stuff.
This was a gift from one of my good buddies. It's an expensive one, man. I would never buy that.
That's hilarious. Daniel T says anything 5 to 6 inches is finesse fishing to Brendan Brown. I would agree. By the way, if you've not checked out Brown Bait Company on Instagram, you should. And on YouTube, guys, because his experience, he custom carves his own big baits. And it is very interesting to me from our artistic end, watching the progression of what that looks like and then the finished product. He makes some absolutely beautiful balsa baits and wood baits. And you should check him out. Just from the artistic end, he makes some super, super cool stuff. Again, that's Brown Bait Company. No extra plug here. I just think B Brown is a cool dude, man. And he makes some really nice stuff. So look at everyone's coming out of the woodwork when we start talking about all the big baits. See, guys, I have to allow myself to hang around with all of you a little bit more to do these things. Wayne, let me ask you a question. If I want to get any of those spoons from you, can I work something with you? Work something out with you on that?
Yeah, just let me know what you want.
I don't need the hardware. I just need the
spoon itself.
Yeah, and then I'll do the rest myself. But I'll be in touch with you, Bub.
Yeah, for sure. If you're gonna be fishing for snook on the beach, you're gonna want one of these.
Oh yeah, what is that a 2-ounce Castmaster?
Yep, 2-ounce Castmaster.
It's hard to freaking beat. Are you putting a single hook on that? Are you making your own, or are you buying them?
Yeah, I just put a bucktail on the hook, just like the Mickey jig.
Yep.
These are more erratic. I don't really fish them on the beach, but I carry one just in case the salmon come around.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because my experience with spoons is, so I'm over the years, I've spent a lot of time fishing for browns and especially king salmon on Lake Michigan, coho, steelhead, all that stuff. And we've spent a lot of time casting spoons. So like, I appreciate all that. Look, you know what? I got to highlight this because I think this is hilarious. So Paladin says, I don't just want you to send me some. I just want your mold. Oh man, it's funny because when people score these like great little molds like that, right? It's just a cool story, right? How you come across them. There's a little bit of luck that goes into all of it, right? I don't have any special molds like that. I honestly don't, so I think that's really cool. All right, so Matt says, how much do you use a surface tin for, or iron?
I don't really use surface irons. That's more of a SoCal. That's a SoCal thing, is the surface irons. That's what they use for like yellowtail and tuna and stuff like that.
What does that technically mean when you say surface iron? Is it only talking about how fast you're retrieving it and it's on top?
I think I have one here. Where is it at?
What's the difference between an iron and I don't know what you call it, a tin like they do on the East Coast? Is the same thing, or is it something totally different?
I think they make them out of ceramic or porcelain or something, but they're these big old jigs that you throw out and they swim on top.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because that's like a big thing, like for the Baja guys, like for GT ice cream, and then like GT ice cream lures, and then also there's a guy in Hawaii that makes some ceramic based type spoons that are surface pullers like that. I just didn't know that's what that was.
Do aluminum too as well.
Interesting.
And
interesting.
They swim on top. They're pretty cool, man. They're for the more pelagic type fish.
That's freaking crazy. I actually want to grab a couple. I've been looking up which sizes I wanted to get the GT ice creams because I want to bring one or two of them down with me to Costa Rica. Yeah, it's just cool stuff, man. Very, 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 very cool. All right.
Yeah, the surface iron's a whole nother different ball game too.
Interesting. Learning a little bit tonight too, which I always like. So I appreciate those questions because it helps me learn a little bit. Matt's saying they're meant to stay in the water column. It's the epoxy jigs, Cuda. Oh, I got you. So it would be like I get you. I understand what you're saying. Like I always know them to be like the hoagies and stuff like that. I know on the East Coast they like to throw those a lot for like the Albies and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I know what he's talking about now. The epoxy jigs.
Is that right, Matt? That kind of that helps me understand a little bit more too. Very interesting. All right, Wayne. Well, listen, bud, we're at about an hour. That's my new goal all the time for these shows, dude. I appreciate you tremendously, dude, because I know the time is not really easy, because what do we got? A 2-hour difference here. So like you had to rush home a little early today. And
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough, buddy. I've appreciated your stuff for a long time. Yeah, and I'm happy to hear that you're not really selling all the time. Just because I don't have to tell people, go message Wayne.
Well, man,
but listen, go ahead, Wayne.
I get too busy, man, and
I know, dude.
I get flabbergasted, and I'm like, man, I can't do all this, but I can't break a promise either. So it's hard to balance that. But
it's really true, dude. I mean, it's like, yeah, it just gets in the way, and it's so walking that line is a real big deal. Like I have a lot of I feel like I have like this year starting off, like there's a lot of things that were about to go into the fire, irons in the fire, and then I pulled things back. I go, I got it. I have to chill. I have to kind of, like I want to do some other things. I don't want to just sit here. I love doing this show, you guys. Like I really do. But like I want to do more. I want to make more jigs this year. I have some real cool stuff coming though. I do. I have some really cool stuff coming that's going to be a little bit different, and I'm super excited about it. And I don't know what's going to happen with some of that stuff. I have some colors that are going to be coming out with a couple companies. Yeah, so like I'm just having fun. I like the design. Wayne, I have like this goal for the second half of the year of having people come on, like not always on a Thursday night, like do other nights. We have an alarm in our house and it's got the door alarm on there. And when, for whatever reason, we got 2 dogs. And for whatever reason, I think the dogs were just going in and out because I was like, all I heard, ding dong.
they want you to get.
I know. And everyone's home. The boys are home. I think one of my boys just got home and the wifey's home. So like they're letting the dogs out. So it's all good. But what I want to do, Wayne, in the future is like get you on maybe another night, even later and stuff like that. We can do some little just random pop-up shows and stuff. And I want to be able to do that outside of the regular schedule. And we'll like pick a topic and spend 20 minutes, a half hour just jamming on it a little bit, giving our opinion, and then moving on. But I'd like to have you part of that process, and we could pick a different night, make it easier for you for it's the evening thing. And I don't know. I think it'd be fun. A little different than our regular interview process,
I'm down for it.
That's awesome, buddy. All right. Well, listen, Wayne, stay in chat. I'm going to end the show, but we'll still be in our little stream here in the back, just me and you. But folks, this is Jig Squad. We did 2 weeks. We did 2 weeks of shows in a row. And the reason is because I'm off next week and I wanted to take off next week. And so next week would have been that every other week process, but we had a show last week. We had this scheduled well in advance with Wayne, and but we're off next week. If I get a crazy hair, maybe I'll call something and put something out there next week. But we'll be back in a couple weeks again. I'll put up the schedule so you guys see. I appreciate you all. This is Jig Squad. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Actually, I could care less if you like. I really don't care. I hope you come around here because you enjoy the show. Subscribe if you enjoy the content so you make sure you're notified. I don't need you to do all these other things, but if you're interested in sticker packs, connect with me. I have some new ones out. They're on Instagram, and they're fire. Actually, Wayne, you got a second? Let me show this before I go. These are super cool, guys. They're in hand, and I love them. Right, so look like they're glowing. They're just some cool. They're all my own design. So Wayne, this is what I'm talking about, like stuff like this. This is that one with the pirate, and then the other one is kind of like this is the other pack. Yeah, this is like a standard regular design, and then this is my one with the topo map type of background. So this is the way you support Jig Squad. If you want to buy stickers, buy them. If you don't buy them. I just like having it run around.
You got to put those on some hats, man.
I know, dude. Everyone's talking about it. They said you can't be running around with those shirts like that either, brother. That's what they tell me. Maybe those will be coming too, folks. You never know. All right, listen, folks. We're out of here. Wayne, I'll see you in the back. You stay in the show here, buddy, and we're gonna end this. Folks, this is Jig Squad. I appreciate all you. Where's my little? I gotta find something. I gotta end this somewhere. I don't even know where it's at. There's like a little background thing that I do, and I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Peace, folks. We're out of here.
Peace.